Hola, ¿qué tal? Yo soy Lala de Dios.
Hello, my name is Lala de Dios, and in this space we have two outstanding visitors,
Giannone y Leo Chiachio.
and Giannone and Leo Chiachio. I need to think about what is the name and what is the last name of both. They are outstanding. They are outstanding, and you are as a unit in the artistic world and as life. You're always together. And as you are well known in the textile environment, I wanted to say, well, how do you define yourselves as a visual artist, multidisciplinary, textile, embroiderers? Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It is a great pleasure for us to speak to you, Lala. We've defined ourselves as visual artists, plastic artists, contemporary artists. That's the area we work. Could you tell us about how you started? When? Tell us about your background. When we started, before meeting each other in 2003, our academic background was always in painting, and it was painting the area we worked the most. And when we found each other and started working and becoming one artist, Chiachio Giannone is only one artist. We like to say that it's an artist with two heads and four arms, and where identity is erased, and is only one idea, one total idea. And this academic training in painting, when we came together, we were able to choose a language or a technique that would allow us to take all that knowledge, and that knowledge was managing color using other material. And that was changing all paints and for the threads and for the needles. And that was the road we took. Embroidery is a technique that we were made known by, but we have worked in many other techniques that were very useful to capture the ideas that we had. So therefore, I understand that you don't have one specific textile training. You learned embroidery on your own? Yes. But imagine all the background that we had in the fine arts school. You are always experiencing and testing new techniques. And my training was during the 90s. So we did a reevaluation from contemporary art, craft, and that was the beginning. And Latin America's in Buenos Aires, the art schools, if we had a concern or a search, you would do many things. And that was part of the experience. And if you had a teacher that would motivate you to use different techniques. So our training within craft, textile, and embroidery is self-taught, but with a background in painting, academic training in painting. So we always think about our vision as painters. We view ourselves as that. And in so many years of training in the 80s, we focused in painting and we did engraving, ceramics, but it wasn't painting, the area that I stayed with. And it was always the attitude, Leo and my attitude was, even though we have changed, the attitude that we keep is the attitude of a painter. And another interesting thing is that even though I learned textile in primary school, where we had plastic arts, and we practiced many crafts as embroidery. We had that experience, and then the training in the arts school, where we didn't see specifically those things. So it was very interesting to work with these techniques, and they were taken out. It was only for the feminine world, taking it up, picking it up, and using that for our speech. It is a political concept. Two men taking over the feminine world. So it's a story of two men that get to know each other and come together in life. This is interesting. It's interesting because training and background is key. Many schools of fine arts and disciplines that are considered fine arts are some specific. It's only painting, sculpture, and in Spain, where I live, in fine arts, we don't have textile. There are groups, there are work groups that come together. They come together and they do things that are fresh, new, and are not seen from the view of a textile expert. And it comes from yourselves, from people that have another training, another background. It is curious to see the difference on all these work and how we do this, what is transformation in textile, which is taught in the university, in Nordic countries, in England, where there is fine arts and schools of art and design. There's training in textile. I think this is interesting. I'm not saying that one is better than another, but it depends on the technique. And you notice right away where there's knowledge, technical knowledge, a fresh view. Yes. What we try to do is to manage those things, both things, knowing how to do, knowing how to think. And we put this into practice. We put all this into practice. And mixing, knowing how to do and knowing how to think. And when we notice that things don't happen or cannot come to life, we start studying, we start getting a reference or finding someone, an expert on an area, so we can capture that learning. We're constantly reading, listening, and during quarantine, this makes us stay home. But the positive thing is that our house is our workshop, and we spend a lot of time here. We attend many conferences, presentations. But imagine yourself, pandemics has affected so many people. Many events have been canceled, projects canceled. This is something that is happening to everyone. How do you live this? Has this affected you? We were, quarantine caught us in California. We were in an institute. As this started, the closure, the lockdown started in South America, so we had to come back to Argentina a week before. It was quite stressing. It used to take us 12 hours, and it ended up in 27 hours to get home. And as we got close to Argentina, some of the borders of other countries were being closed. And then arriving in Argentina and see that, well, we had to go on quarantine for 2 weeks, completely isolated, and we thought that this would take 15 days, a month, or a month and a half. And it's been 7 or 8 months in lockdown in Argentina. We have been in fully social isolation in our studies and in our workshops. So our studio is our home. Our studio is our home. We always find something to do. And what is going on is completely different. This time has allowed us, and we say, to rethink so many things. What is the type of artist that we want to be? Why do we do what we do? And it allowed us to pick up ideas that were in standby, and picking it up from another side. We are in a constant production state. We haven't had ups and downs on that area, but we are working alone. And I know that you have many, many friends. You have in your network of friends, and you're socializing. You're in Europe. I've seen you in Europe many times, very, very often. I need to congratulate you for everything you do. You visit so many museums and you share that. It's outstanding. It gives us opportunities of those that haven't been able to visit so many places. And with the visit to Chile, my visit to Chile, I was able to see many of your pictures, and I imagine that that it's affecting you very much. But now going to something else. You had a project in France. Yes, well, when we came back, we had 2 projects. And in these months, well, we had the biennial of the South Cone in Porto Alegre with Andres Junta as a curator. And it was the first biennial in the world that had to move. And it was being set up. And it had to move to another model and reinvent it into a virtual world. So it was a learning for everyone. This physically did not exist. With the idea of Andrea Schutz and the curatorial team, everything was able to be done as ideas, well, having small videos in the workshops, how we were doing, how we were dealing with this situation, and how with our current situation it would dialogue or not with a project that we would present in Porto Alegre. So we thought that we could participate with a hand embroidery, a large format that talked about nature, the importance of valuing and nature, and responsibility of mankind towards nature, and the place of humanity in nature. And that we were going to participate with a community action, inviting people to do embroidery. So it was going to be called A Place to Live. We practiced this so much, and we prepared ourselves for this, and we thought it was going to be wonderful. There are practices that are very difficult to carry them out. And this is on the biennial. The other project, following up, we were coming back from California, then we were going to go to Brazil, and then to Bourges in France, in the Transpalet Art Center, and we were going to do a project with the LGBTQ community in France, and part of our work, well, was sent to Bourges. We did patchwork with the flags of the community, of gay pride, and all that is there. It was canceled. That was for next year. It's only a standby. It's only a standby, but we don't know much what will happen. Latin America, we don't know when the borders will open. So this is a waiting time. We have another project that we're waiting for. It's the Vancouver Biennial. And this biennial will be, well, it will be tied to what is happening. The issue with the borders, trips, planes, and, well, things that cannot be controlled, things that are out of our control. In Vancouver, we have the intention of doing a research. So we wanted to do some work, and as we were thinking about this situation, and we started with that, we wanted to do an analysis and a research on the ancestral of the indigenous people from Canada, from Vancouver. So we wanted to start working on that. We began working there, and we started looking for information, bibliography. We have information on the internet, but it's totally different to being present, to being there. And we all know that in textile we have, but not much information, not so many research, at least in Latin America. Well, hearing you looks like the pandemic has not affected you that much. It's a good example. This is great. It's a great example, a good attitude. The problem that I see in this situation, and as you said, it's very difficult to plan. It's very complicated to plan. Because in Latin America, you don't know when you're coming out of that, but nobody knows, not even in Europe, not even in Asia. We were talking to the director of the art center in Hong Kong. It has been the same. She has opened and closed many times. She doesn't know if they're going to continue open. And it's complicated. I just came back from a biennial in Portugal. We were able to do it, but with much care, but not many artists, and we were able to do it, but 2 weeks before they still had the doubt. Yes, you're right, and we have the challenge in terms of seeing our practice. This is our survival, and the fact of creating is survival and mental sanity, mental health, and this is something that we want to maintain. So how to show that? As an artist, we live in a certain uncertainty in terms of what we produce, what we show, how we live, and considering the historical time in each institution. We have always lived with this. Now, uncertainty is world uncertainty. And in our studio, we try to maintain our process. And we don't know where we're going to show our work. We have projects, we have embroidery, and we imagined ourselves showing it in different places. We don't know, but we're doing it. We are doing it. And what we do is take most of our days working on that. But it happens very often when we work with a piece that is specific for a presentation. We work, we develop, we we create something and then we see how we're going to show it. Some saw one of these projects in Austria, and this is was shown also at the Biennial in Europe. And we were not preparing this for a specific place. This was presented specifically in the Netherlands, but that's the way we think. That's part of production, is the creative process. And we're always interested in having a certain freedom, working in projects, regardless of the place that project will be exposed, will be presented. We don't work based on an invitation unless that invitation is made maybe 10 years in advance. We might think about it, but we work based on what we want to do, our needs, not a project, not a third-party project. I understand that. And this pre-biennial is a pre-biennial online, and it is a call on the process of creation. They have asked us for works for recording the production process. So I was going to ask you about your process. I have understood that you work based on a subject that interests you. Yes. Yes, and we developed that for a long time. So as artists, we don't have so many subjects to work on. Something happens and we start working on that. We're not working now because of the quarantine or something, but yes, of course, we will maybe work on an idea based on that. But there will be issues. We always work on minorities, LGBT groups, art, value, revaluation, historical revaluation, the construction of a family, building a family. These are things that we're interested in. And we like the knowing knowing how to do or to think. But we notice this after 20 years working. And it's not that we think about it and everything is clear. No, many of our work has stayed behind. Right now, we are working in two projects in embroidery that we don't know where it will take us. But this is a revaluation. This is artists that it's about artists that have been left behind. They've been forgotten in time. And as plastic artists, we work on that throughout our life. It's like singing the same song. You change a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's always the same song. So this is more or less what we do. So we're not concerned that much. We know that that will have a certain reading, it will pick up, it will take shape. So we work like all artists, as in advance of things that are going to happen. Last year we finished a series called Refuge. I'm thinking about the situation of the fires and the animal species that are in extinction and in the danger of extinction, and the natural habitats. And we had a number of pieces that we worked, and that was based on a study on the Flemish paintings, but between that and the reality today. And these jars that were filled with flowers that are flowers from our zone, from South America. And this large flower vase, having all the animals, having all the plants there in that vase. And the nature reduced to that vase. And the eye started looking for flowers, but when your eye started seeing the detail, it found an elephant or a giraffe in that refuge. And then we found months later that after that series is presented, we're living this reality where refuge and domestic and home is our safeguard. We have talked about process and context, doing work, many large works. And we have been asked about this. If you do this alone, or you have people that help you, and if you do it by hand, all our work is handmade, 100%, except for sewing maybe a corner or an edge. We could do it with a machine. Patchwork that we are doing is done with a machine. The first part is uniting the fabric, and if we have a quilt, we quilt by hand. We work alone. We had people that would help us, but right now, no, it's only us two working and producing. We work all day. We work 8 or 9 hours, and 8 or 9 hours of work. We do it ourselves by hand, and we love result. We love the result. We like the surface. You know, when you see a sort of a regular surface, but you notice that it's not fully regular, it's irregular. Someone did that. We love seeing that, and we love doing it. And it's not difficult to work with other people. We do that. But our attitude, our approach when we do embroidery is not following a pattern. So as we want to maintain that freshness and the view that we had as we worked with the acrylics and the oil paintings, we're always changing, but it's something that cannot be seen at first sight. But this is something that we manage in terms of color. That's why we want to be there. So every 3 stitches we change the color, but a bare eye would not see it or would not notice that. But this is something that becomes a bit difficult because you have someone else, but it's not fully independent. You need to be watching what that other person is doing. So if we say, okay, we need to fill this surface with this same color, yes, that is viable, it could be doing. We improvise too much. We improvise. We put a color, and then that color takes you to another shade. So it's like in painting. And the speed of painting is not the speed of embroidery or tapestry or weaving. So in that case, we need to work, and if someone assists us, well, we need to be very aware. We say, okay, we're going to work with this greenish blue, but then we're going to put a green line and then a pink line, so the green will be greener. So we think about these issues, but we need to bring it together. We need to incorporate it. And if we can do that, if we can say all that will be done in a quilt and 1.5 centimeters. Well, yes, that could be done, and that takes time. It takes time.
Entiendo, claro. Pero vosotros habéis hecho, me parece, habéis hecho algo de, a veces hacéis formación.
You do training, you have workshops, and I get the impression that the result is collaborative work. In Miami, you did a big flag. No, that was in LA. That was in LA. That was a project that we called Common Work. That is working with people. And these were practices that started here in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, where the first time we did this was to call embroiderers that live in isolated areas, in isolated zones. And we thought it was very interesting to call them. And in the middle of the field and start doing the embroidery. And that common joint activity was the beginning for many other activities, for dialogue, for sharing, for knowledge sharing, and talking about concerns. It was like stopping and seeing what was around them. And that was nature. So each of the women, because it was a group of women, they would come in with their fabric, with a preconceived idea of what they wanted to do embroidery. But they wanted to copy something. And what we proposed to them was, look around you. Look around you. Take that environment to your embroidery. And we asked them, well, watch the birds and do the embroidery of the birds. That took 2 weeks. And there was a community that was generated. This is another concept that we are interested in. So when art considers this group of communities, and in the Ruth Sakar, the contemporary art gallery, that in a called soft archaeology, we called people to do embroidery, and we brought more. It was 200 people doing embroidery together. And it was people of different generation, men, women, children, adults. That was one of the first activity, embroidery. And then we did it in Chile. The one of the birds, we did it in Chile, in Isabel Croxato Gallery. And we did it in the gardens of the gallery. It was wonderful. So it doesn't matter how we do the embroidery, but we need the issue of working together, coming together, transforming that is a meeting. It's coming together. It makes us something. And sometimes they come with, they feel that they have a great demand. Should I know, or do I have to have a background? No, you don't. And then they transform into something else. So fundamentally that. And then the pieces, this is a project. The biennial is closed in Porto Alegre. They did the same activity at the Fandenga, and then take it to the museum. Hang the installation at the museum, but it wasn't possible. So it stand by in the meantime. And with the question about the flag, what we did in Molam, the Latin American Museum of Latin American Art Museum, was celebrating diversity with Gabriela Urtiaga. And the director, Lourdes Ramos, was in Buenos Aires. And what she did was to make a history line on the community LGBTQ and or all the artists that let us or helped us become what we have become as mature gay men. So we did this with a technique that we discovered. We discovered, not invented. It was mosaic, textile mosaic, and with it was a self-adhesive with a paper. So the director Imola saw it in Buenos Aires, and she invited us to do it there. During that time, for the community, for the LGBTQ community, we work in collaboration. We're always thinking about adding people. And in this case, we invited Cecilia Kaufman, a textile artist from Buenos Aires, and we invited her to allow us, or to help us think about the techniques for the flags that we were hanging during the work of that project. Then we go to LA, and with the people that visited us, the museum, people that would attend the museum, we would ask them a question. Ask them, what does it mean for you to live in diversity? So, considering that question, many presentations, and because that became our study, and people would arrive there and they would see us working. They thought that we were part of the staff of the museum, but then they noticed that we were the artists. So they would go back to, oh my God, artists are working there, and we were able to see them. So we would challenge them. We would challenge them to tell us about what was living in diversity for them. And the answers were written in squares, 11 by 11 inches. And we were sewing that, and then we made a pride flag, 50 by 20 meters. And that was taken at the Gay Pride parade, and it needed 130 people to take that flag. It was a full creative process, working with people. And we had, for one question, 4,000 answers, and they were very, very broad. And in Buenos Aires and California, we had different answers. And that was very interesting. It was very interesting because we became the spokespersons for that community, and with that flag. It was a project that made us anxious. We had a deadline. It's giant. It's 50 meters of flag. And there is an idea that we're interested in when we decided to do the flag, and it was because of the concept. The concept that we had in CCK is to give visibility to the group of artists that are part of the LGBT groups and community, and they would speak for their on what they were doing. But we thought about thinking about what was community, make a flag out of that, take it to the streets, and make the artists more visible. So it was like opening the windows of CCK and take that flag out, giving greater visibility. And what we were able to do was to take the flag from the Cultural Center Kirchner to Avenida de Mayo, and that was our main area, and take it through with the whole city of the Gay Parade. And that was very interesting because in the streets we had the presence of this whole group, this whole community, a live community, and that is wonderful. it is wonderful because we said, well, this was done with garments from friends, with the colors, and we transformed that into a big flag, and it was our second skin of everyone, all together. And in that point, it was interesting. What was interesting there was how a piece that we see within an institution or a museum is a work of art, and then how we demythified that. We took that piece to the gay parade, and it took a totally new sense. We lent it to one parade with La Loca is called, and it was for young kids, and we said, well, no, let's put it here. We will put it, and we will. And the parade card was one piece, and it changes the sense. You know, if we put it in different places. That was so interesting to do. And where is it now? Where's the flag now? It's in LA. It's in Mola. Because the idea is to allow it to go around in different places. In February, we showed it in LA. We show it in different ways. In the gay parade, in San Pedro, in Los Angeles, in a hangar and a building, around a building, and we showed it in a fair, vertical. And what we did was a performance reading what each individual wrote. So people from the fair would come to us and they would ask for the microphone. They would be reading, and we had so many voices reading. And it's there until museums open, and they can go back to normality, because the idea is to take it elsewhere, to take it to other places. Before I forget what I was going to ask you, I was thinking about so many things while you were speaking. I get the impression that your work is more activism than before. These things that you're doing with the flags and for the gay community is a result of what you have done before, or maybe you're going out. Well, it has a different timing. And if we we say activism, yes, it has always been activism. For the decision of having two men doing a technique that has been mainly in the hands of women. And we always called our piece the family of Chiachio Giannone, when we did not have equal or gay marriage. So it was political too. The configuration of family, the new families, where there was no legal framework. So that was also a political gesture and a political approach. So it's not that the spectator was new, but it was another attitude. So what we did was to incorporate the process, generating performances and making these flags. It's quite traditional in textile. And working together, people come together, women come together for textile work. They come together for weaving, for embroidering. This is something that is not so common in other arts, not in painting. We don't have a group of painters painting. unless, well, they're in a park. But working together, enjoying that, is part of textile. We know that, well, textile doesn't need any other equipment or any other procedure as a furnace, for instance. So I wanted to say that, yes, embroidery is very feminine in terms of work, and regarding the culture, all the clothing of the matadors in Spain is done by women and religious embroidery. And they do all the embroidery and images, religious images. So in general, in West, is related to women, and women at home. Yes, quite bourgeois, from the bourgeoisie. Yes, or women don't know how to do anything else, so they simply stick to embroidering. That is something from the past. You mentioned a lot of galleries and museums, and you move your career in a very specific way. So always betting for art galleries, for museums. We don't see much of your connections with the textile biennials or other type of events that were related to textile. How did you do that? Well, as we told you at the beginning, as we started at the art school in contemporary art, space and museum are the things that you have in your mind in the first place. So that's why we always think about galleries and museums. And when we started in Buenos Aires 20 years ago, we were represented by a small gallery of young art in a fancy neighborhood in Palermo. And it was a gallery and a restaurant that was closed, and then we went to another one, and we spent some Belleza and Felicidad, and then it closed, and then we went to the Rubén Sacar, and that is the contemporary art gallery that is well known in Argentina and the rest of the world. That is over 50 years. So we always focused our career to that area. I'm not saying that the other areas or the other events are not of interest. Yes, they are. But we are not good to put our work into a contest. It takes too much time. We're always thinking about work for a presentation, to take it to an exposition, to do a presentation. When we prepared for soft archaeology, we worked for over 2 years for that. So we would never take a piece of work from that, because it has a tale, it has a history. So we would never take one of those pieces out to send it to a contest. And within that context, after finishing soft archaeology, we did a large piece that is called Splash Criollo. That's a mosaic, and we presented for the Salón Nacional de Artes Visuales, is a visual arts, and we obtained the main award. That gave us a lot of joy and prestige. It's the oldest. And there are others that are we're interested much, and this is because of things that we want to give. There many years we had a paintings gallery, and we decided to present a embroidery called pintura, called painting. So we wanted to put that in the focus. So we wanted to send it there because we want to generate that questions, that scene in the scene. See, well, how will the jury see this? Because this could be seen as a painting. So these are things that we want to do. These are the things that we were interested in. But was it chosen? Yes. Yes, it was chosen. But we know who the members of the jury are, and we know their views, and we know who will be more interested. So what we want to do is to be kind of making them a little bit uncomfortable and see the differences between small arts and large arts, and why do we have a difference among arts. And when we decided to take it to the most important galleries in Buenos Aires, today in 2020 is not the same answer as we had 20 years ago, where people was not used to see, for instance, ceramics, where painting were the main actresses. And this gallery was always an avant-garde gallery, so that was very positive. And they called us, but it was mutual. It was mutual. We chose them and they chose us. And we knew that was fertile. So as to do this, present this embroidery, and that we had the historical support of that gallery. And they knew what was happening in the world. So in the scene of contemporary art, where we have many artists that work with craft, and in that area, the gallery knew what we were doing, and they were betting for that. They were betting for that, and it worked okay. We had their support, and it was growth, great growth of doing that in Buenos Aires. That would take us to the Art Basel in Miami. So that is great visibility in Art Basel in Miami. The Museum of Art and Design in New York, they buy one of our pieces and they take it to the museum. So it gives a visibility. It gives a visibility that is quite complex. Social network work very well for visibility. But we still know that this is something that is palliative to do things. But we like to touch things. We like to be close to things. We like to be standing in front of a work of art. We like to see the real size. And you had the experience of seeing an embroidery 5 by 3 meters. It's something else. It's not like seeing it on screen. You feel something else as an spectator. You see something different. What moves you while you're watching this? So now we are living this stage on, well, seeing things in screen, information era, but it's not as seeing this piece live. Well, what's going on in the world now in contemporary art and textile is something that we haven't talked about, but what you did 20 years ago, sending this embroidery to a painting contest, today wouldn't be necessary. Today is totally different. Textile art or textiles have gone into the Contemporary Art Museum and art galleries. We never seen so much or so many textile work. So we are seeing Annie Alves, Vaganovich, state. So presenting in the leading venues, and we see them in galleries in different levels. But there are also emerging artists. There are emerging artists that are presenting, and they come from the fine arts schools and don't have a textile background. So this is something very interesting. It is interesting, and as a historian, I'm interested in seeing if this is a trend, is this something that is here to stay, or is it some fashion that might go away? Well, I think the world has expanded. I think the borders or the limits of contemporary art have expanded. I don't think this is fashion. I think this is something that has always been there. Art and work in textile. And I think that there is also an economic crisis worldwide. And think about this. To paint, you need a studio, you need space, you need infrastructure, you need so many things to paint. So if you do an installation, you will need mechanisms, you need projection, you need lights, you need a lot. With textile, this takes you back to the origin. This takes you back to a more intimate work. And if we, in embroidery, we see only the fabric, the threads, and that's it. You do a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, and then you develop a whole piece. You develop a whole piece. And there are issues regarding the economic aspect, or you might say, I don't want to face such a situation of or having super studio, or so this happens, and in the economies. On the other side, we had young people experiencing with textile because there was an opening in areas where they were able to show their work. I think institutions have opened too. They have opened, and Louis Bourgeois too. And they had a lot. And in other hemispheres, it was easy, and picking up some places. I think Latin America, we had a devaluation. The lack of could be valuation of what is wonderful. A museum of textile art, as Santiago has. And this is how we have grown, is very present in the museum, and also in conservation too. Good policies on development, and beyond that, well, we, in a way or in another, we have worked to open up that space of giving a place. It's sort of a conquer. This is textile, is in the world of textile. And that has been subscribed to the indigenous people, but thinking in textile in multiple ways has made it earn a space. And this is not blaming someone. This is something that had a result. It's only a result. And there is, yes, they had to work on that. There is a background. And when we see Leoninson in Brazil and in Argentina, or as Danny said, Lee Bourgeois or Grayson Perry, artists that, or Francesco Vesoli, with the Italian divas, the production and video. And artists that have been working, and knowing how to do, how to think. And we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware, see what we are discovering. And it's a broad world, and with the networks, well, there are many, many things that we can discover. And there are many artists that are working with fiber. We're quite eager to look for information. We don't have much in terms of development. Corcuera. Ruth Corcuera, a great historian. And he was someone that stopped in investigating. It is wonderful. And Elena Isque in Lima, Peru. So hopefully we have more historians, we have more young people that are looking for more experiences in the textile area. They should do a reading. With a fresh view, contemporary view. There are many artists that have done so many things. And in our zone. And also all the work they've done in what is textile. Well, we don't have so much. We don't have so much, but we need to have access. We need to change. We need to have educational institutions. That needs to be open. And it's not only experiencing that could be done with other material, but it has to have full support from the theoretical aspect and showing the young artist all these possibilities, all these areas. Well, yes, this brings a personal memory. When I went to Buenos Aires in 1998, I was looking for a book from Ruth Corcuera, and I found copies of the books. Wonderful, wonderful books. And as you say, is an important base. We're finishing now, but I would like to ask you two things about the event we are participating in. What do you think about the role of the textile world? Two areas. Associations. In Argentina, there is a very old institution, that how you see it, and how do you see that the trajectory, and biennials, textile biennials? What is the role that they should play? We know, but we don't have such a great link there with the Textile Association. So we could not say, well, where is it going or coming from? It wouldn't be fair. But I think it would be good to open up towards the contemporary art. And also young artists that have needs, that work with textile. And if they don't do it, we need to extend the limits towards young generations that have other interests. And we know that. being teachers and working with young people. So institutions should bring all those needs together. We have had contact with people that participate in an institution, but not with the institution. And we are talking about all institutions where people, if they feel represented by the institutions should give an answer to those concerns to continue existing, to continue living. And this is as part of collaborating and coming together. This is something that we need to do. This is something that we have to deal with. And if not, what will happen in all these institutions, if they're not here anymore, they are simply left out, they're forgotten. And the young people are the ones that need to take over that. This is in the future. And this is something that we have had a lot of activity and have founded many, and I have presided others. And it is an association, a group of people. And then time passes by, and we need to adapt. We need to adapt to the changes. If not, the new generations will look for other things. Change have been enormous. We have had technology changes, and I've spent weekends, and then I would prepare an information and then send it through mail and the post office. But now everything has changed. So the question that I have always asked is about all these biennials, triennials, people, artists that are specifically in textile art, contemporary art, but there are events that are in line. And how would you like to see this in the future? How would you like to see the result? I'm always interested in diversity of voices, not who does it, but diversity of techniques. What happens with a textile and a sculpture talking to each other? If we have an installation, we have a video, and we have a textile. I like that. I like a symphony. I like everything coming together. So I was always interested in that. We say we're painters, we show paintings, even though we do it with fiber. And we like that. We like that type of dialogue. So this is where we are. We made a presentation and in contemporary art, and this was for each of the works. So when we talk about diversity, and we voted for that, and the images and techniques. So textile and also empowering an installation with textile. And this symphony, these voices that could add up. I think it's interesting. It's interesting to see that we have to include it in the views. And also, this also happens. We're surprised. We're surprised with their concerns. Surprised with the concerns, and also this is something that is completely different. It's completely different. And we need to move forward. We need to move forward, and we have to see that with a fresh view. It is something that is very difficult, and open it up to this and break the prejudice. A young textile art gallery in Williams, and they called us to be a jury, part of the jury, and 5 generations. We didn't know any of the young artists, and it was wondering seeing the concerns and the disparity of criteria, what we considered and what the others didn't consider. So this was the exercise. And that is opening up, and the ideas and the technique. We have different values, and try to see if we want that to continue having a place in the scene of contemporary art. And an artist that made a performance, and also working in care and protection. And that had to do with textile. And there is a performance where we hang the clothes in the wall. We hang it on the wall. And it was there, and we thought that it should be there, and it had to be there. And this is a textile art gallery, and they wanted to present things differently. And we had to do an exercise of thinking about it. This was very interesting. It was very interesting. And they were all were all together. It was a sort of as a second skin that would all come together. And we had to do this. We had to make an effort. It's in the same area. It's a great exercise. A great will, and understanding that type of practice. Yes. And it's not so difficult. And making a little bit of textile and the meaning. So we have different type of garments, different types of clothes from your family. And for monographic. And if we take it to the biennials or triennials, combine this with the textiles made, this expands the arena as textile photography, textile video. I was impressed, definitely impressed, and even with what you're saying, how this has changed. Well, we have been talking for over an hour. We can continue. All the time you need. Yes, well, we can continue a lot of time. And I would like to say thank you, and if there is something that you need, if you would like to say some closing remarks, and if not, I would like to thank you. Thank you very much for being here with us, for being so open, honest, and for having such a clear view, a vision of what you do, explain it in such a clear way. So, any closing remarks or an advice? Or maybe some thoughts for the people that are starting, or even people that are in the midst of their career? Well, it's fundamental to do this work, knowing how to do, how to think, and all these things should come together, have information, the movies, the theater, dialoguing, and the world should be extending, the world should be expanding, and then you see it in everyone's work. So this is what we are doing, and it's what we are dealing with. So what we are doing is to be always looking for things, and always be suspicious, as if something is okay, it turns out good, well, be suspicious, move away. And we don't want to be artists that we produce the same always the same thing, and trying to make it grow, and not having such an attitude of wanting to produce the work of art. So producing, and the future will bring consequences. So this brings results, and by doing brings results. These are the things, that's why we don't produce one piece for one work, only one a year just to send it to a gallery. Art is not like that for me. Art is in everything. And what we have to do is to produce. We don't produce for. Thank you. Thank you very much. A big virtual hug. Hopefully soon. And we hope we will meet in Chile next year. And we celebrate all these meetings. We are isolated, but not virtually. We're together, and we're even more together. And these practices have extended the family and human life. Thank you.
Adiós.
Goodbye. Thank you.